Okay, great. Um, so I noticed that there aren't that many people in, well, for tonight. I'm just wondering how many of you guys were there for the previous Fusus lesson, just so I know how to tackle this particular lesson.
I wasn't there for the last Fusus class, Siddhi.
Okay.
Me neither. Me neither.
Okay, I got you guys. Thanks. Okay. Um, yeah, okay. So let's see. Okay, so maybe we should just do like a brief recap then. Zanir was there. I think Petros, were you there too? Maybe also Omar. I think I don't recall.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So let's just do like a brief recap. Can anyone, for the people who were there last class, or even if you just watched the last class, um, just recall what did we talk about last time? And guys, so I'll just say it again. Um, it's really good if you participate as much as you can because this is such a dense chapter. So the more you participate, the more you'll get out of it, inshallah. So just a brief recap if you can. What did we talk about last time?
Can I offer? I wasn't there, but I did see the video carefully.
Yeah, yeah,
And
brilliant.
it,
Yes,
yeah, it
please.
was about the Quran Pak being both the Furqan and the Quran, and how Nuh alayhi salam, in his invitation to his people, was unwittingly or wittingly, he was using or doing Furqan rather than Quran, and his people would have
Mm,
been geared to um, would have been open to Quran, which is implicit in the words Dawatu Qawmi Laylatan Laylan wa Nahara.
yes.
So and for our beloved Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu
Awesome.
alaihi wasallam, it is the Fajr and the Maghrib is when they're mixed, when there is a little bit of day in the night and night in the day, and that is the potency of Quran. If I'm not wrong, if I
No, thank you so much, Homa. Those were definitely some of the themes that we touched upon. People who have not watched the previous class and did not attend previous class, so that I don't lose you, do you require further explanation? Maybe it's just good to like go over it again very briefly. I guess like the more we go over it, like the clearer it'll get. But yeah, that's the gist of it, Huma. Why is Huma talking about day and night?
because the list of the opposites that is occurring,
List of
the
opposites,
opposite,
but mainly what? Which are the first opposites? Literally the first ones. Which it's the makeup of this entire chapter, right? Which is Tanzi and Tashbih.
mm,
That's where it all begins. It starts with Tanzi and Tashbih, right? And Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, he brings an excess of Tanzi to counteract the excess of Tashbih against his people. But he also does at some point bring together both attributes, but he does it in a Furqani way, where they're separate. They don't intermix, they don't intermingle, they don't intertwine. If they don't do that, that's not Quran. Quran is when they interpenetrate. Then it's called Quran. So you talk about how Sayyidina Alayhi called them day and night, right? Which means he called them by tanzih one time, by tashbih another time. And he called them using their intellect one time, another time he talks about their bodies, right? One time he talks about their spirits, one time he talks about their outward forms. But all in separation. And he does that on purpose, but he also can't do anything else because he's not Muhammad, but he also does that on purpose to counteract the spiritual illness that is debilitating them. So he's also like a doctor, right? He is a spiritual doctor of the heart as well. Um, so he does that. Um, but then the people, the Qawm Nuh, they are in the station of Quran, which is the way reality works. Anything you talk about, things are intermixed together. That's the way reality is. So they did not speak that language. They did not understand that language. So if only it were possible, if it was possible to bring them an ayah like ليس كمثله شيء وهو سميع بصير وهو سميع بصير, even if you brought just half the ayah ليس كمثله شيء, they would have accepted his call completely and totally, right? Which shows you that they are in a particular state of mind and they're in a particular station, right? Which is a really interesting way of looking at things, because they're not unbelievers from the perspective that, like, no matter what you bring them, they won't ever accept anything. No, they can accept a certain message, and this is one of them, right? So I'm sorry if it seems laborious, but I'm gonna go through this section again, just because it's so dense. Can someone volunteer to read, please? If there's a hand up, I don't see it. Otherwise, I'll just do it myself. Okay. So, yeah, good.
I can read, Sidi.
Go ahead. Bismillah.
From لو أن.
Yes.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لو أن نوحا جمع لقومه بين الدعوتين لأجابوه فدعاهم جهارا ثم دعاهم إسرارا ثم قال لهم استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا وقال دعوت قومي ليلا ونهارا فلم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا وذكر عن قومه أنهم تسامموا عن دعوته لعلمهم بما يجب عليهم من إجابة دعوته.
Okay, so you see, right? He says that they pretended to not hear his da'wah. They pretended, right? The Tasamu is to pretend. It's to feign hearing. Like they can clearly hear him, but they're pretending that they can't hear him, right? Which is when they put their fingers in their ears, right? Due to their knowledge that if they were to hear them, it is required to answer his call. And they know that they cannot answer his call. They cannot. Because that would mean in Furqan, that would mean dismissing genuine irfani knowledge. Please continue.
فعلم العلماء بالله ما أشار إليه نوح عليه السلام في حق قومه من الثناء عليهم بلسان الذم.
Okay, stop. وعلم أنهم إنما لم يجيبوا دعوته لما فيها من الفرقان. Okay, so go back to the line that you just read, Sana. Do you want to have a stab at translating that sentence that you just read?
Which sentence?
فعلم العلماء. You're the one who read it, right, Sana? Or am I mistaken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just try. The ulama know Allah, know of Allah.
Okay, so it's like he's saying the Arif Billah. The Arif Billah is the one who knows God, right? But instead of saying Ma'arifa here, he's talking about ilm. So he'll say the Ulama Billah. So they are the knowers of God, but by using the word ilm.
Yeah.
So here he's talking about the Ulama Billah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the knowers of Allah know of what Prophet Nuh alayhi salam alluded to, or about reality, or the real, or the truth of his people.
You could say that, but also fi haqqi in Arabic generally means concerning, if you want to make it simple. So they knew what he was doing to concerning his people, but that's good. Yeah. Go carry on, please.
Yeah. Of the praising of them through the language of blame.
Yes, praising them upon the tongue of blame. What on earth does that mean? What do you think he means by it? So the ulama billah, the ones who know God, they understand that Nuh alayhi salam wasn't just doing a simple blame, and he wasn't just complaining to God. There's something else happening beneath the surface of his words, and they get that, and they're able to intuit it, and they're able to detect it concerning his people. So really, yeah, I've got my own view, but what do you guys think? What on earth does that mean? Praising them upon the tongue of blame, or using the language of blame, as Sanat said. What do you think that means?
Does it mean that he's acknowledging that his people would have responded to Quran?
He's acknowledging something because he knows the reality of Quran himself. You're right, Huma. That's a really good point. He's acknowledging something. Yeah. What do you think he's acknowledging?
That they have a particular station. His people have some irfan, they have some a station.
Yeah, they have some irfan because he already used the word ulama billah. They're the ones who recognize this point because they're the ones who also have ma'rifah, exactly. They have something to them, right? But the thing is, the prophets deal with multiple realities. And so because they deal with multiple realities simultaneously, they have to be careful with the way they speak. And so their words are loaded treasures. You can dig deeper and deeper and deeper and uncover one new meaning after the other. But the one who masters that technique to the fullest, the other prophets don't really have this as much, is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He's the one, because he's given what? Jawami al-kalam. And what does Jawami al-kalam translate into?
All-encompassing speech, right?
Yeah, so you could say the all-encompassing words, the all-embracing words. So what he does is, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he speaks few words, but they bring together many meanings, right? And so even his syntax, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, prophetic syntax, the way you say something, the way you choose certain words, the way you leave out certain words, structures reality. So they're extremely careful with the way they speak. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. What does that mean? He does not speak from his whim. He can't, right? Because every word he says has to reflect the way reality is. So that's a huge burden on Rasulullah and any prophet. It's not easy to constantly speak that way, to act that way, right? Because they have mushahada. What's mushahada? They have direct witnessing into reality as it is itself. So back to the subject matter at hand. So Nuh alayhi salam, he knows that they have some sort of ma'rifah. And so when he talks, he'll say it in a certain way, right? And so when you read the Quranic ayahs, right, in Surah Nuh, you'll see that the words are slightly open to interpretation, to more than one interpretation, right? He is outwardly blaming his people upon the tongue of the Sharia because the Sharia blames them. But then he is also implicitly praising them with respect to what? His walaya, with respect to the ma'rifah that comes from his walaya, in which they have acknowledged God from a certain perspective. So that's why, like, you don't find absolute words in the ayat with Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. There's no absolute blame. You infer the blame, right? But so let's try and find the words themselves. So I'm going to open up Surah Nuh because it's not coming to my mind right now. Let me just open up the surah. So he says, Bismillah, right? قال ربي إني دعوت قومي ليلا ونهارا فلم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا, right? You know that from the context of the surah, that is a sentence of blame. But try to find the actual words themselves. There's no word of blame in that ayah.
Dr. Faris?
Yeah. Just let me finish, Zanira, please. Okay. There's no actual words of blame. They're running away, but he doesn't tell you why they're running away. So this is Sheikh Al-Akbar being a literalist. Why are they running away? We know that from the tafsir perspective, from the outward perspective of tafsir, it's obvious they're running away because they're too arrogant to listen to his call so that they can be submissive and humble towards his da'wah and obey him and God, because they don't want to do that. But that's not what the words say here. That's outwardly. But they're also running away for other reasons. So it's good from another perspective, not from the perspective of the Sharia, but from another perspective, they're praised for running away from that which would make them give up their ma'rifah. So that's also praise. And the ulama billah know that. They can see both sides of that and one in the same ayah. Yeah, sorry, Zinira, go ahead.
But towards the end, he says, وَقَالَ نُوحٌ رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ دَيَّارًا.
Whoa. You're skipping way ahead. Yes, of course. That's a very important verse. And we're going to come to that right at the end. You see, Zanira, what I'm going to get to, if I haven't said it already, is that in the whole Fas Nuh, and therefore by extension in Surah Nuh, there's an implicit narrative. There is an implicit narrative. And Sheikh Al-Akbar is going to walk us through that narrative. Now, if you look at the surah itself, you can see the narrative, and it is a surah of narration, just like Surah Yusuf is a surah of narration, mainly speaking, right? So is this one. But there's two narratives happening. One is the outward narrative, and then there's the inward narrative of what's happening in their inward selves. And the inward narrative of suluk and ma'arifah, and the inward journey they have to take to reach union with Allah. So he's going to walk you through that. So just hold on for a few more lessons, Nira. That is like way ahead, and we'll definitely get to it. But we're nowhere near there yet. Of course, you're right. He says a lot of things, and they're actually imprecations of wrath. But I'm not going to get into why he says them. I want to save it. So take it really slowly. So what I find with Ibn Arabi is that if you don't walk with him with some patience, if you feel yourself getting impatient, it becomes hard to understand his words. So you just have to go with him really, really slowly and be really, really patient. Because he, really, by the time you're done studying Ibn Arabi, I don't think this is an exaggeration. I think your brain becomes rewired. I don't know if anyone here feels the same way as I do right now. But by the time you're done studying Ibn Arabi, your brain gets rewired. I don't think that's an exaggeration. So really extraordinary. So this is one example of the verse. فَلَمْ يَزِدْهُمْ دُعَائِي إِلَّا فِرَارًا. There's an implicit praise in that verse. Okay, so let me get back to the actual fuss. So one of the things that makes this fuss so hard to read is that he's constantly operating on two levels. If you bear in mind that he is constantly operating on at least two levels, which number two means duality, right? And duality is very important because the message that's being brought is Furqan, and Furqan is duality. So he's always talking on two levels. If you bear that in mind, then the fuss becomes much easier to read and get to grips with. So outwardly, he blames them. Inwardly, he praises them, right? And then, by implication, the commentators of the Fusus Al Hikam, they say that by implication, all actions in the universe are a form of sana towards God. All actions, in the end, without exception. And that's what he says in the beginning, if you remember, in the Muqaddamah, in the prologue to this fuss. He says that Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That's this lam means that all praise is not just that God deserves all praise, but that it all goes back to him no matter what you do, right? And that's the reality and structure of the whole universe. Blame is accidental, but praise is the rule, if you like. Is the what's the opposite of accidental in philosophy? Essence, right?
Default?
It's the default. Yeah, exactly. Praise is the way things are, and blame is accidental. In the same way that rahma is the foundation of everything, and ghadab, wrath, and anger is an accident, right? So he's working on these two levels, right? And that's because, as we keep saying, these people, Qawm Nuh, they are what? Arifin themselves, right? They are arifin themselves. They have ma'rifah. They are actually spiritual geniuses of the first order, actually. But they're misguided for obvious reasons. So I think, sorry, excuse me for 1 second. Munira's trying to get into the room. Just let me see if I can get her in. All right, 1 second. Okay, I just sent her the link, and I apologize for that. So now we can carry on. Is she trying to get into the room here? No, it doesn't show, right, Yasmin? Okay, thanks. Okay, so let's carry on then. Sana, go ahead, unless someone else wants to read.
وعلم أنهم إنما لم يجيبوا دعوته لما فيها من الفرقان والأمر قرآن لا فرقان ومن أقيم في القرآن لا يصغي إلى الفرقان وإن كان فيه فإن القرآن يتضمن الفرقان والفرقان لا يتضمن القرآن ولهذا ما اختص بالقرآن إلا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وهذه الأمة التي هي خير أمة أخرجت للناس فليس كمثله شيء فجمع الأمر في أمر واحد فلو أن نوحا يأتي بمثل هذه الآية لفظا لأجابوه فإنه شبه ونزه في آية واحدة بل في نصف آية ونوح دعا قومه ليلا من حيث عقولهم وروحانيتهم فإنها غيب ونهارا دعاهم أيضا من حيث ظاهر صورهم وجثثهم وما جمع في الدعوة مثل ليس كمثله شيء فنفرت بواطنهم لهذا الفرقان فزادهم فرارا.
Thank you so much. Do you remember what we talked about last time? How he called them by day and night, so literally, but also with regard to their own selves, they contain day and night, right? Because the human being is the microcosm. The human being contains the whole universe. So the night, with respect to the human being, is their intellect. And the day, with respect to the human being, is their outward form, right? So he also called them by their intellects and their spirits, right? And that's in Surah Nuh. Where is that in Surah Nuh? And we talked about this last time. That is exactly in Surah Nuh, where he says, let me just open this up, where he says, وَجَعَلَ الْقَمَرَ فِيهِنَّ نُورًا وَجَعَلَ الشَّمْسَ سِرَاجًا. Right? Because the light, right, symbolizes the intellect, and the moon symbolizes the intellect, and the sun symbolizes the spirit, right? And then when it comes to what's called their jithath, right, their corpses, their bodies, that's the next verse. وَاللَّهُ أَنبَتَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ نَبَاتًا, right? Because he's talking about the resurrection when you're dead and then you become alive, right? ثُمَّ يُعِيدُكُم فِيهَا وَيُخْرِجُكُم إِخْرَاجًا, right? So he is alluding to the tawheed of their spirits and the tawheed of their bodies, right? The tawheed of their intellects and the tawheed of their spirits. But he doesn't bring them together. So this is Furqan, right? And they don't accept that. So that's not a call they would accept. But this is exactly what he is talking about in these lines. The references are to those verses, right? Now, I said that there's an implicit narrative, right? So in the share screen, I wonder if I can change up the screen. So just give me 1 second. Okay, can you see this if I put this on the screen, right? I change it to English. Do you see that at all?
Yes.
Okay, can someone read this part? So these are my translations from "they pretend to be deaf" to the end of the paragraph.
I'm happy to do this part.
Go ahead, see. Bismillah.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. They pretended to be deaf to his call by sticking their fingers in their ears because they knew what would be required of them if they heard it, i.e., obedience. So they blocked their ears from listening to his call, that the tongue of blame may not fall upon them. The knowers of God, ulama, knew what Noah, peace be upon him, was alluding to by praising them with the tongue of blame. That is, he excused them, and the basis, mustanadum, for blocking up their ears was sound, sahih. It is as though he said they truly did what was required of them. They do not enter into that prescriptive category of obligation. They are not required to respond to his call of divided directions. I can't read that.
Which is da'watuhu al-muftariqa al-jihad. Go ahead.
Thank you. I.e. one-time tanzih and one-time tashbih. And these words are difficult. This is because they were Ahl al-Quran, but he came to them instead with Furqan. So it is inevitable, fa'ala jaram, that they did not respond.
Actually, I have to fix that. That's fala jurum, but yeah. So this is one of the commentators. This is Tilim Sani. Tilim Sani is commenting on these passages, as you see here with his words. And then he says these words are difficult because it's even far-fetched for him. And he said, really? You're saying that they're not obligated to respond to his call? That seems really far-fetched. So he said, these words are difficult, but this is what Sheikh Al-Akbar is saying. So these are the words of Tilim Sani. And then he says that if they're in the station of Quran, it falls that they're Ahlul Quran, right? Because the people who are in the maqam of Quran are going to be its people. So they're Ahlul Quran, the highest station, actually. It's a really strange and extraordinary claim. He's not suggesting that they're pious and righteous, but they have a certain maqam that corresponds to the Quran in terms of their ma'rifah. So they had to block up their ears. Now, this is all in the context of an implicit narrative. So let's see what the narrative might be. So Sayyidina Qaisari, he gives us an insight into what that narrative might be. He talks about like what is really going on in their inward selves and what are they looking for, what are they seeking. Can someone read this for me, please, from their predispositions to the end of that paragraph? So this is Qaisari explaining why he thinks there is an implicit narrative in the story as well. There's like an implicit second narrative.
I can continue. Inshallah.
Go ahead, Sidi. Bismillah, go ahead.
Their predispositions were unable to accomplish the ascension towards this perfection, so they plugged their ears from responding to his call through deception and stratagems so that he might imprecate against them through the real's manifestation, via the self-disclosure of the essence, with the attribute of overpowering vanquishment. hence attaining the perfection called to upon the tongue of their prophet, by answering his call in action. He prayed against them and brought them to perfection, a mercy for them in the form of vengeance, just as is witnessed today with whoever is tested with a prohibited matter. He is unable to extract himself from that blameworthy quality, which is khasla, but also a cluster or tuft, like something stuck. Blameworthiness is stuck to him because of it at every moment. So he asks the governor, Al-Hakim, to annihilate him with the tongue of his words and state in order to be freed of that blameworthy trait. A prophet is a mercy sent by God to his respective community, so that each member of that community reaches his perfection. It was because of this that Noah prayed against them all.
This is a fantastic way to look at the story. I don't think it's the only way to look at it, but this is a fantastic way to look at it, because what they're doing is that through their act of disobedience, they're really saying, please help me. I don't know what the cure to my illness is. Please help me. So the Nuh alayhi salam, as the doctor of the soul and the doctor of the heart, says, I will help you. And he guides them towards their perfection at the end of the story and at the end of the surah, right? And that can only be achieved through what's called the sifa al-qahariya, right? This attribute of power and vanquishment and vengeance and wrath from God. That's the only way it can be accomplished. So does that make sense in any way? Or are there any questions on that?
I think it makes a lot of sense, especially with the word kahariya. With actually Umar Sidi, when we were doing that Ismail Hasana, one of the meanings was irresistible, because
Yes.
they're trying to resist obeying him by plugging their ears. And so they're calling on the reaction from the irresistible.
That's perfect. That's a beautiful way of looking at it. Thank you so much, Huma. As you'll see, it gets more complicated than that, but I really appreciate that answer. So they do reject this call. Yes, you're right. And so they plug their fingers in their ears, right? Okay, then let's go to the next section,
I have
please.
a question.
Yeah,
So
yeah, go ahead.
when Kayseri says that their predispositions, what's the Arabic for predispositions that he uses?
I'd have to double check, but it would be something like their ista'dadat.
Istadad, okay, understood.
Yeah, ista'dad, yeah. Yeah, who wants to go to the next section, please? To read it, I mean.
I'll go.
Yes, go ahead. Bismillah. Who's that?
Zanira.
Hi, Zanira. Okay, go ahead.
From ثم قال, right?
Yes.
Okay, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ثم قال عن نفسه إنه دعاهم ليغفر لهم لا يكشف لهم وفهموا ذلك منه، لذلك جعلوا أصابعهم في آذانهم واستغشوا ثيابهم، وهذه كلها صورة الستر التي دعاهم إليها، فأجابوا دعوته بالفعل لا بلبيك.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, I'm very sorry to do this to you, Humma, because what you said was correct, but now, as always, the Sheikh Al-Akbar will complicate the picture, because yes, upon first glance, they don't listen to him, and that's the best way to start off this narrative. But now, what he's saying is that when you give it a second look, when you dig deeper, he's saying from another perspective, they did answer him. How is that the case, right? So let's go back to the beginning. Then he said about himself, right? Inni da'awtu qawmi laylan. So he said about himself, I called them so that you can forgive them. I think I talked about this last time, but might as well do it again anyways. So the ayah is, وَإِنِّي كُلَّمَا دَعَوْتُهُمْ لِتَغْفِرَ لَكُمْ جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ وَصَرُّوا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا, right? So he's talking about himself, that I called them so that you can forgive them, right? إِنَّهُ دَعَهُمْ لِيَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ, so that they can be forgiven. لَا لِيَكْشِفْ لَهُمْ, not so that they can be uncovered for them. Why is he saying that? What's ghafr? What does ghafr mean?
Cover.
Yeah, so the first meaning of the word ghafar is to forgive. And as you rightly said, the root base meaning of the word means that ghafar means sitr, satara. Ghafara, satara. Ghafara means satara, which means to cover, right? So you know how we said like he's operating on two levels? So now look at this. The true meaning of the word ghafar, right? If you want to look at it from this perspective, is to forgive. That's the meaning of, that's the intended meaning. But if you look at it like literally, so that's the inward meaning, but the outward literal meaning of the word is to cover. So they took one sense of the word, but not the other sense of the word. You know, because you want God to cover your sins. That's the complete meaning of the word. You want God to cover your sins. So they kind of like bulldozed. They bulldoze the inward meaning, the real meaning of the word, which is to forgive, and they only went with the superficial outward sense of the word, which is to cover. So now Sheikh Al-Akbar is saying, look, he said about himself that he called them to so that they be covered, which is correct. But the obvious intention of Sayyidina alayhi salam was that he wants God to forgive them, right? But that's not what they understood. So because he used the word to cover, not the other word, which is to uncover, right? That's what they understood from him. وَفَهِمُوا ذَلِكَ مِنْهُ. So they literally covered over their ears by plugging their fingers into their ears and covered and shrouded themselves with their clothes so that they wouldn't have to respond to him. وَهَذِي كُلَّهَا سُورَةٌ الستر. All this is a superficial outward form of covering that he called them to, right? If you divorce, so this is almost like schizophrenic. This is almost schizophrenic. If you divorce the inward meaning from the outward sense of the word, this is what you get. It's very dysfunctional. It's very strange. It's very weird. But you see, he called them with furqan, so they gave a furqani response. Do you see that? He called them with furqan, so they gave a furqani response. So the response split. It's a response that's split. Like if you think of a branch in a tree that splits the branch into two branches, right? It splits. That's what they understood. So that's what they did, right? فَأَجَابُوا دَعْوَتُهُ in one way. So they responded, they actually did respond and answer his call بالفعل, with their actions, but not with labbaik. The goal of a prophet calling you is that you answer the prophet with labbaik Rasulullah. I am at your service. So that's complete obedience. So this begs the question, why are they doing that? It's weird, right? And Zanira noted this in one of our previous sessions, not the last one, but maybe the one before that this is not like a real response. Sheikh Al-Akbar is calling it a response of some sort, but it's not really a response. So why are they doing it? And why is he saying that this is what they understood from him? It's like you use the word cover, so I covered myself. What is that? What do you guys think? And there is a very clear answer to this, but there's no point in giving it before like you kind of like think about it for a second. What do you think it is? You see, because they are kind of listening to him. He called them to cover. He didn't call them to uncover their ears. Because the implication that Ibn Arabi is saying is that if Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam called them to uncover their ears, they would have done that. And they would have then listened to him. You see, because we're still working with dualities, right? So this is the next duality. If we have Tanzih and Tashbih, we have Quran Furqan, the next duality is Kashif and Sitr. Now, Quran is actually connected to Kashaf. Why is Quran connected to Kashaf? Guys, please have a stab at this. Why is Quran connected to Kashaf? Why?
Because there are multiple layers to to understanding the Quran, and it's a lot of the meanings that people uncover when reading the Quran are given to them by God Himself, and it's just appears to them in the form of kashf. And so the multiple layers which are embedded in the Quran, they're not all of it is accessible through striving on human terms, and so it's given to them by God. That's what I understand from it.
Yeah, but let's take it a step further, because couldn't Furqan be the same thing? People have kashafats and people understand different things from the Furqan, and God grants them dreams and stuff. You could say the same with Furqan.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's almost like union, right? Like, because if Quran is Jama, and then Kashf is like an unveil, not like it is unveiling. And so a veil is like a separator between two people or two entities. And so when the veil is lifted, there's Jama, there's union.
Well, yes, Nir, because that's the way reality is. Quran is reality. Quran is reality. So the way we say in the Quranic verse, He shall show you His signs, or we shall show you our signs. I think سنريكم آياتنا بالأفاق وفي أنفسكم. Words that effect, right? حتى يتبين أنه الحق, right? So the Quran as a book is just a transcription. It's a copy. It's nuskha of the universe itself. And the universe is a copy of the Quran. One reflects the other. You want to know the way the cosmos is and all of reality? Look at the Quran. The Quran will tell you the way it is. One is a mirror of the other, right? So Quran is the book that brings together the haqa'iq and the realities, but it's the book that brings together all knowledges. So by definition, the word Quran, qarana, or sorry, qara with a hamza, means jama'. That's what the word means, jama'. And if you bring something, by definition, you've uncovered it. So for example, if the Quran is the book that brings together the previous prophetic knowledges, it has uncovered them, yes or no? If the Quran is the book that brings together other realities, by definition, it has uncovered those realities, yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
And the Quran is called, what is one of its names? Light. Light is one of its names. Also, Rasul, one of his names is light. He's Siraj Munir, right? And light is what uncovers. The Quran is luminous. It is nur, it is daw, it is diya, it's all of it. So by definition, it uncovers. So the Shaykh Al-Akbar says in the Futuhat, the Quran unveils all the knowledges sent down in the scriptures and contains that which is not contained by them. Correct or not? Correct? Does the Torah contain Quran? No. Does the Injil contain Quran? No. So the Quran by definition uncovers, by definition, right? And the station of gathering, which gathers the realities, by definition uncovers, right? So therefore, if Quran is to kashaf, then Furqan is to sitr. Furqan is about covering over, because when you separate knowledges and you separate realities, you've covered them over, yes or no? Right? So, in the same way, if the Shaykh Al-Akbar is saying that no Islam brought just one verse of Quran, they would respond because they're in the station of Quran. In the same way, had he called them to unveil themselves, to uncover the clothes from their bodies, to uncover their fingers from their ears, they would have done it. And had they done it, they would have responded. Because the person in cessation of Quran uncovers. Now, I'm going to show you a poem that he has written to that effect. So let me change the screen.
Sadiq, can I ask a quick question first?
Yeah, please go ahead.
How is Furqan?
Sorry,
How
guys, can you see the English?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Sana, go ahead. Yes.
So, how is separating a form of covering? Like when you separate things, don't they become more apparent and obvious? Like how is
Yes, you're right. But listen, Sana, this is Furqan in Quran, not pure Furqan. I'm talking in absolute terms. You're absolutely correct. If you bring together certain knowledges and you separate them into an order, you're clarifying them. That's Furqan in Quran. You're absolutely right. That's not pure Furqan. But pure Furqan is to get rid of certain knowledges, to cover them completely. So I'm talking.
right?
Sorry, go
So
ahead.
basically, what is being covered is the cohesive realities behind those differentiations. Is that what you're saying? That the realities that bring them together, they're covered?
A pure Furqan covers the realities, period.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about pure Furqan, but if you're talking
Right.
about Furqan in Quran, then what a Furqan is doing is that it is ordering them, separating them out into a discernible and comprehensive and cohesive order that you can understand. So that's
Right.
Quran. That is Furqan in Quran. That's Kamal. That's completeness.
Yes. And then so pure. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the same thing. Really, go ahead.
Yeah. So once again, so pure Furqan would cover
Yes.
realities. That's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
Whereas pure Quran unveils them, but it might also unveil them in a chaotic and disorderly way. So, but Furqan in Quran is perfection, right?
Right.
Okay. So this is the poem that he says. Can someone read this out, please? See, Petro, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Actually, no. Let's just do this one. Yes.
Read the poem?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Noah called on his people so that their Lord cover them. They accepted what they were called to. They accepted with their states. Thus they shrouded themselves with their clothing to conceal through a covering, and they shrouded their hearing, that which heeds. Had they been called upon instead to uncover the garment of blindness from themselves, not one of them would have striven against Noah or apostatized. These are illusions for Ahmed's Ummah, not for Noah, though the hadith says they are both together. God protects one who is ever a possessor of awesome sublimity, generous, a leader who has protected God's inviolable rights, hurma. Were the real God to bring down his revelation upon the head of a mountain, it would crumble. I verify from that revelation the heart of one whom I knew, for when his inspiration came upon him, he did not break down. Even though he was from a people, when their night turned pitch black, you see them at him, prostrating and bowing, and you see them uncovered, regretful, at the intimate conversation, bewildered, drunken, submissive, and humbled.
The second part of that poem, who is he talking about? And the hint is that when their night turns pitch black, إذ ليلهم دجى, I think, دجى. Who is he talking about?
Sahaba? Is it the Sahaba? Because I feel like it's, I think Surah Fath he says, تراهم ركعا سجدا.
Not at first, although there must be Sahaba who are like this, but he is talking about the Malamiyah, the people of blame. You see, the Qawm Nuh, the people of Noah, have the states of the people of blame. Who are these ulama billah? They're actually the Malamiyah. That's why they see the words they Nuh alayhi salam as ثناء على لسان الذم. What's them? Them? اللوم. What's loam? Blame. Because they're actually the people of blame. The Malamiyah, the highest saints. And Sayyidina Nuh is one of the prime examples of the people of the Malamiyah. So that's the other thing. If the Qawm Nuh or Ahlul Quran, they're also Malamiyah. The Malamiyah are the Muhammadans, literally. They are the highest of the awliya. So when you want to see the states of the Muhammadans, when you want to see the states of the Malamiyah, they're in Surah Nuh, in Qawm Nuh. That's the first thing. But let's get back to the first paragraph. They answered what they were called to, right? They accepted what their states because he called them to conceal. Had they been called instead to uncover, لِيَكْشِفْ لَهُمْ, to uncover the garment of blindness, right? I think it's like غِطَاء الْعَمَى, something like that. The garment of blindness from themselves. Not one of them would have striven against Noah or apostatized. Not one of them. You see? Because Quran is to kashf, what Furqan is to sitr. Now, let's go back to the actual Arabic text. All right, here, let's just do like this. Okay. Are you still seeing the English or the Arabic?
The Arabic.
The Arabic.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yes, Petro, this is an article I wrote and I can share with you all, no problem. Yes, I can share it. So I'll put it into the Fusus group actually. Yeah, so this is an article I wrote for the Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi Society. So we know what he's talking about now, right? Because technically he asked them to uncover themselves, but Ibn Arabi is making a weird claim. Had Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam used a different word in which they can uncover themselves, he says they would have done it. Why is he saying that? I know, I think it's kind of weird as well. It doesn't really make sense until you come across one verse in the Quran and then it clicks. It absolutely clicks. And it is the verse that ties the entire fuss together. I'll give you a hint. It's from Surah 11. It's actually from 11:38.
Is it the one that's quoted here?
It is the one that is quoted here. I tried not to show it by accident, right? But it's that verse, right? So I'm going to read it out to you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Actually, I'll read out the second part of it, actually. وَكُلَّمَا مَرَّ عَلَيْهِ مَلَأٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ سَخِّرُوا مِنْهُ قَالَ. So Nuh alayhi salam said, قَالَ إِن تَسْخِرُوا مِنَّا فَإِنَّا نَسْخِرُ مِنْكُمْ كَمَا تَسْخِرُونَ. What does that verse mean?
Sorry, Dr. Faris, where are you reading from? I can't, I'm not following the text. I can't see that.
Because it's not in the text, my dear Zanira.
Oh, okay.
It's not in the text. I had to think I had to think very hard to get to this verse. It's not in the text.
So he's saying that if they mock us, we'll mock them like they mocked us.
Yes. Every time the Mala, who are the high chief tribes, right? They're also mentioned in Surah Nuh. وَمَكْرُوا مَكْرًا كُبَّارًا. Kubbara in one of the tafsirs means it's the chief of the tribes. So the Mala are the highest chiefs. Every time they passed by from his qawm, every time they passed by Zayd alayhi salam, what was he doing?
He was building an ark before there was any sort of storm or anything.
He was building the fulk, exactly. وَيَصْنَعُ الْفُلْكَ وَكُلَّمَا مَرَّ عَلَيْهِ مَلَاءٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ سَخِّرُوا مِنْهُ. So he was building the ark, And he was building the ark on dry land where there's no water. So they absolutely found that ridiculous. So then they did taskhir of him, sakhiru minhu. Then he said, if you, so they mocked him. If you are mocking us or mocking me, if you are mocking us, then we shall mock you just as you mock us. Right? So, if we go back to the Arabic text, they are mocking him. What does the word mock mean? What does sakhara mean in Arabic?
To laugh.
Or even in English, to mock someone. What does that mean exactly?
To make fun of in a way that's like humiliating.
Yeah, but go further.
Copy.
Like to imitate, yeah.
Imitate, like a mock trial.
To imitate,
mimic.
to imitate, to copy, to mimic, to imitate, to copy, to mimic. Exactly. It's when you take part of what someone is doing, right? So, astaghfirullah for doing this. But, if I was to mock someone, for example, I could change the pitch of my voice. Someone says, listen, do you think this is really good? I go, do you think this is really good? Right? That's a horrible mockery, but it's an imitation of the very words he said. So I'm copying him. I'm mirroring him, but by changing one aspect of what I'm doing. Right? And if someone makes a hand gesture, I could also mock him by making the same hand gesture, which is really insulting, right? So mockery can mean you are imitating someone in part by only taking one part of the sense of their words or actions that they're doing. So, Qawm Nuh, they're mocking Nabi Nuh alayhi salam by taking only one sense of his words, which is the cover. So when he says, seek the covering of your Lord, they respond, oh, you mean like this? And they cover their ears. Because look, I'm covering too. Right? That's mockery. That's what they're doing. And as we go on throughout the whole of the fuss, as we continue to go throughout the whole of the fuss, what you will see is that Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam is mocking them back. He is mocking them back. Now, this still doesn't answer all of our questions, because yes, we can see now that they're mocking him, but Ibn Arabi is saying, had he called them to uncover themselves, even if by mockery, they would have answered him. They would have uncovered their ears and therefore answered the call. Why is he saying that? Why is he saying that? He has something specific in mind, right? Let me do this. I'm going to show you another paragraph. So Ibn Arabi really believes that if you were to call them to uncover, even though they are mocking him, even though they're mocking you, they would have done it. See, they're obeying him by mocking him, in part, right? Although we know that in prophetic discourse, mockery has no value in general, right? Ibn Arabi is saying, actually, it has some value. He seems to think so. Now, I'm going to show you why he thinks so. Just let me find the right page. I should have done this before. Let me
Because they're still copying him in some way, even if it's mockery.
Yes, good. But doesn't that seem far-fetched to you? Kind of does, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If that seems far-fetched to you, then I invite you to read this paragraph, and I'm going to bring it up because I've almost got it, inshallah. Yes. Okay, here we go. I just found it. Let me switch over. Here we go. Oops, sorry, not that one.
What is this text, Siddhi, the English one?
The one I showed you before was an article I've written. This is the book I've written.
MashaAllah.
Okay, so can someone read this paragraph, please? Actually, so let's get a sense of the context. This comes from chapter 560 of the Futuhat. So it's all that chapter is all about nasiha. So he gives you like a huge variety of different advices and counsels. One of them is how do you handle a stubborn person that comes from the science of what? Politics. This is from the ilm al-siyasa al-hikmiyya, the science of politics. How do you handle someone who is being stubborn, right? So he shows you what happened to him in real life, in his own life. In his own life, he gives you an example of what he did. Can someone read the paragraph, please? See Petro, if you don't mind.
Happy to represent the English speakers here.
MashaAllah.
If he perceives within a person's state contrariness and stubbornness, such that if leading him to where his best interests lie, provokes him to do the opposite, just to spite his counselor, then it is from good counsel that he does not advise him, or rather he should point out to him the opposite of that. When he knows that the affair is confined to either doing one action or the other, wherein lies his best interest, whilst that individual's nature is one of opposition and stubbornness, then he points him to what should not be done, so that he, the latter, may oppose him and hence end up doing what is proper. I find it best to leave him. This happened to me with some individuals. We showed them that performing the good deed, al-khair, we wanted from them offended us, and they did indeed want to offend us. So we indicated to them not to do the khair, since there is a mighty good for them in doing that good deed. So do not do it. Hence, they did what we forbade them from doing. This is a hidden counsel. Not everyone perceives it, and it is called the science of politics, ilm al-siyasa. It is used to guide, yasusu, recalcitrant souls who stray from the road of their best interests.
This is super funny. This is like opposite day. This is like, challenging children how to deal with them. Tell them the opposite and, and then they will actually do what you wanted them to do.
Yes, and by the way, Zanira, that's it. This is reverse psychology in a nutshell. Exactly, Homa. And then we do this with our own children as well, of course. This is reverse psychology. And yet it works. So it's not completely far-fetched, but the Sheikh Al-Akbar is saying from an Irfani, Gnostic, mystical perspective, that has its own version of reverse psychology, right? So let's go back to the Arabic text and then just wrap up for tonight. Wait, so that's going to be there. Yeah. Had he, Sayyidina alayhi salam, had he called them to uncover, they would have done that. Because they're being stubborn, they want to mock him. So had he called them to uncover themselves, they would have done it. And had they uncovered themselves, uncovered their ears, even if done mockingly, they would have heard him and responded. But he can't do that. He cannot do that because he doesn't have Quran. And Kashf is to Quran, what Furqan is to Sitr. He can't do it. But Sheikh Al-Akbar is just pointing out to you their natures, right? By the way, like, why are we doing this whole fuss? There's many reasons, right? Because he wrote this really for the awliya, and the ulama, and also for you and me, for anyone who wants to benefit from it. But so really this contains many lessons, especially for the awliya, right? Given what they need to do in their tasks in life. But one of the lessons that I found in this fuss is that what Sayyidina alayhi salam had to do was due to circumstances that were particular to him. He had to reject certain realities, right? We shouldn't do that anymore, lest we exclude people, right? So then you get this tragedy in which people perish by virtue of having certain realities rejected. But in our day and age, because the Shaykh of Muhammad has come with its kashaf, right? It is able to accept all the haqa'iq. There's no reason to call for people to perish from that perspective, because everyone can be included. That's one of the major themes of this fuss. Why he's written it, I find. Yeah, so let's just call it a night and stop there. Because that's a lot of info. Any questions?
I have a question about the script. What does it say? Like the second line after minhu and between minhu and lidhalika. Does it say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or like what does it say? Like who's it referring to?
Yeah. So no, so that would be Sayyidina alayhi salam.
And at the end as well, عن نفسه, after عن نفسه.
Let's
so
see.
is it عليه السلام?
It should, yeah. Innahu uti, but in this case it's about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But yeah, it can either be sallallahu alaihi wasallam or alayhi salam. I'd have to like zoom in to see what it says exactly. But this is probably sallallahu alaihi wasallam for Rasulullah.
Yeah, it looks like sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I'm not sure how that's relevant to the context.
Well, I mean because it's about Muhammad. Like you mean the first one or the second one?
The first one, I definitely like when I zoom in, it looks like sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second one also looks like sallallahu alaihi wasallam to me.
Yeah,
but
I get.
He's not quoting Rasulullah, is he? Because I feel
he is in the next one. وبهذا قال عن نفسه صلى الله عليه وسلم إنه أوتي جوامع الكلام.
Right. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Or even thoughts? So
I think even sorry, I was going to say even this reverse psychology bit kind of carries on the theme of mirroring.
Precisely. Thank you, Homa, for saying that.
From the very first sentence of the text, and we keep on facing the mirroring in one way or another.
So what's happening is that for the rest of the fuss, you're going to see Qawm Nuh mirror Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, and Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam is going to mirror Qawm Nuh. They're both going to mirror one another because of mocking. They are mocking Sayyidina Nuh, and he's going to mock them back, which is mirroring. And what's going to happen is that Sayyidina alayhi salam, he is the madhar for the divine name, the inward, which is being mirrored in reverse reflection in the people of Nuh, who are the madhar for the divine name, the outward. And the whole story is a mirror reflection of the inward reflecting the outward. And they're both mirroring one another. And Sayyidina alayhi salam, he represents the inward, al-ism al-batin, and Qawm Nuh, they represent the name, the outward, or ism al-dahir. And that's what you're seeing happening right now, and it's going to carry on for the rest of the text. Cool. Any last questions? Then I'll just like stop recording here.